Story number 1. I need you to understand something about the woods behind my house before I take you into them. Before I walk you down the deer path that I have walked 1,000 times and show you the door in the ground and what was inside it, because the woods matter, the specific quality of them matters. And without understanding them, you will not understand why finding what I found shook something loose in me that has not settled back into place in all the months since. These are not deep woods. These are not wilderness. These are the kind of suburban-adjacent second-growth woods that exist behind houses like mine in the rural fringe of small towns all across this country. Woods that feel wild to the people who back up to them, but that are in reality a strip of trees, maybe a quarter-mile deep before you hit the next road or the next subdivision or the next cleared field. Woods that have been walked by every family that ever lived in the houses that border them. Woods that are known. I have lived in this house for 11 years, and I have walked those woods in every season and in every condition, with my dog and without my dog, in daylight and in the flat gray light of overcast November mornings, and twice in full dark when the dog got loose and I needed to find her. I know those woods. I know every feature of them, every low spot that floods in spring, every cluster of old beech trees with their smooth gray bark, every section of crumbling stone wall from the farm that occupied this land before the houses came. I know those woods the way you know a place that you have been returning to for 11 years, that has become part of the structure of your ordinary life, that is yours in the way that a place is yours when you have walked it so many times that your body carries the map of it below conscious thought. I know those woods, and there was a bunker in them that I did not know about, and the food inside it was days old, and I am going to tell you everything. I find the door on a Saturday morning in October. My dog finds it, which is more accurate. She is ranging ahead of me on the path the way she does, her nose down and her tail working, doing the specific focused investigation that dogs do in outdoor spaces. And she stops at a section of ground approximately 40 feet off the main deer path in a shallow depression between two large red oaks. And she does the thing she does when she finds something that is not food but that smells significantly interesting, which is she circles it and then sits and looks at me with the specific expression of a dog that has discharged her finding duty and is now returning the problem to the appropriate authority. I go to where she is sitting. I look at the ground she is sitting beside. I see leaves. Leaves covering the ground in the way that leaves cover ground in October, in the specific deep accumulation of several weeks of fall. And I almost accept this because this is what ground looks like in October in these woods. And then I see the edge. The edge of something geometric beneath the leaves. The right angle that nature does not make. The specific corner of something manufactured interrupting the organic randomness of the forest floor. I brush the leaves away with my boot. More leaves. I crouch and I use my hands and I brush leaves aside, and underneath the accumulated October is a door. A hatch. A flat metal door set into a concrete frame that is flush with the forest floor. The concrete itself covered with moss and the specific dark staining of many years of exposure. But the door itself, the metal of it, not as old as the concrete, newer, the metal not corroded through, not rusted to the frame, still functional as a door, which I determined by finding the recessed handle on the right side and pulling it, and the door opens. It opens with the resistance of a seal, a slight suction as the air pressure equalizes, which tells me the space below is enclosed and has been sealed, and it opens to reveal a shaft, a vertical concrete shaft perhaps 3 feet square, with a metal ladder bolted to one wall, descending into darkness below. I stand at the open hatch for a moment. The dog looks at the shaft, and then looks at me and makes a sound that is not quite a whine and not quite a bark, and contains elements of both. The air coming up from the shaft is cool and dry and has a quality to it that I register but cannot immediately name. A quality I come back to later as the quality of lived-in air, of air that has been in a space with a person, the specific atmospheric residue of human occupation that is distinct from the smell of an empty sealed space. I notice this and I file it, and I tell the dog to stay, and I go down. The ladder is 8 rungs, which puts me approximately 10 feet below the surface. At the bottom of the shaft is a corridor, concrete, low-ceilinged, perhaps 5 feet high so that I have to duck slightly, running roughly north for about 20 feet before opening into a room. I use my phone flashlight. The corridor is bare concrete in good condition, no water damage, no structural compromise, no evidence of the kind of deterioration that 10-plus years of abandonment in the northeastern soil would produce. The concrete is clean. This is the first thing that alerts me with specificity, the cleanliness of it. The way the corridor looks maintained rather than abandoned, swept rather than left, and I walk the 20 feet and I enter the room. The room is approximately 12 feet by 15 feet, concrete on every surface including the ceiling, with a low platform bed along one wall, a metal shelf unit on another, a small table, and a single metal folding chair, and in the corner a camping stove on a low table with a propane canister attached, and a pot, and a single metal cup beside it. There is a battery-powered lantern on the shelf, and I turn it on because it is there and it works. The battery's full, the light bright and clean, and in that light, I see the room the way the room should be seen. The bed has a sleeping bag on it. The sleeping bag is laid out as if the person who sleeps in it just got out of it this morning. Not rumpled and pushed to the side, not packed and stored, laid out, opened, the pillow at the head of it bearing the impression of a head. I look at this for a moment, and then I look at the shelf. The shelf has supplies on it, organized supplies. The organization of someone who has been living with these supplies long enough to know exactly where everything is and to return everything to its place. Canned goods stacked by type, a water storage container of the kind that holds 5 gallons, a manual can opener, 2 plates, a second cup, cutlery. Below the shelf, on the floor, 2 more propane canisters, a small battery-powered radio, a notebook and a pen. I look at the table. On the table, there are the remains of a meal. Not old remains, not the dried and calcified remains of food left weeks or months ago. Recent remains. A plate with food on it, food that has been partially eaten, food that is recognizable as food, as recent food, bread, and what looks like canned beans, and the specific appearance of things that were put on this plate in the last several days and have been sitting in the cool, dry air of this space since. I lean close. No mold. No significant desiccation. The bread has staled but not hardened, which in the cool, dry air of this room means it was placed here no more than 4 or 5 days ago. Probably fewer. The beans have dried slightly on the surface, but have not congealed in the way that beans left for weeks congeal. Days old. This food is days old. I look at the notebook. I look at it, and I do not touch it, which is a decision I make quickly and do not question in the moment, a decision that feels important in a way I can articulate now better than I could then. If the person who lives here comes back while I am here and sees that their notebook has been moved or opened, I want the situation to be as resolvable as possible. Want to be standing in someone's space without having gone through their things, which is at least a situation that can be talked through. I look at the cover. It is a plain composition notebook, black and white, the kind you buy anywhere. I do not open it. I look at the rest of the room. On the wall above the bed, there are 3 things. A small hook from which hangs a jacket, a nail from which hangs a flashlight, and a calendar. A paper calendar of the current year, the pages turned to the current month, October, with dates xed through in the specific daily marking of someone keeping track of time in a place where time is otherwise hard to track. The dates are xed through to 3 days ago. 3 days ago was the last day this person was in this room, or the last day they xed before they left it. And they were in this room 3 days ago, in this room 40 feet off the deer path in the woods behind my house. In a room I have walked past the surface of 400 times without knowing it was there. I go back up the ladder. I pull the hatch closed behind me, as close to how I found it as I can manage. I collect my dog from where she is sitting, and I walk back to the house, and I sit at my kitchen table, and I think. I think about who, and I think about why, and I think about what it means that someone has been living in an underground room in the woods behind my house, and I did not know. I think about the calendar and the X marks and the 3 days. I think about the sleeping bag laid open. I think about the air at the top of the shaft, that quality of lived-in air that I registered and filed, and I think about what I know about that quality now that I know the room. I think about the 11 years I have been walking those woods, and the question that comes with the 11 years is the one that keeps me at the kitchen table for 2 hours, the one I cannot find the edge of and therefore cannot set down. How long has the bunker been occupied? The concrete is old. The structure is old. This was not built recently. The supplies and the maintenance and the lantern and the sleeping bag are recent. But how recent is recent? What is the full length of the overlap between my 11 years in this house, walking these woods, and whatever has been happening 40 feet off the deer path in a sealed concrete room in the ground? I call the non-emergency police line. A deputy comes out and goes down into the bunker and comes back up and confirms what I found and takes a report and tells me this is concerning and tells me they will investigate and asks me not to return to the bunker. I do not return to the bunker. The investigation, as it reaches me over the following weeks, concludes that the bunker is of Cold War-era construction, probably built by a previous property owner in the 50s or 60s, not unusual for rural properties of that period, and that someone has been using it recently. No one is identified. No one is found. The bunker is sealed by the authorities, the hatch secured with a lock, and that is, officially, the resolution. Someone was living in a bunker in my woods. They are not identified. They are not found. The case goes cold in the way that cases without identified individuals go cold, and the official chapter closes. But I have the unofficial chapter, which is the Chapter 1 live-in, and in the unofficial chapter there are things the official record does not address. There is the question of how long. There is the question of the deer path and the 1,000 times I have walked it, and what was below me every time. There is the question of the dog, who for the last 2 years of the 11 has been behaviorally different in a specific section of those woods, who has on multiple occasions in the past 2 years stopped in the area around the hatch and been unwilling to move forward, and whom I attributed to prey scent or some underground animal burrow, whom I now understand was doing exactly what she was doing on the Saturday in October when she found the hatch, sitting and looking at me with the discharge of duty expression, returning the problem to the appropriate authority. For 2 years, she was returning the problem. For 2 years, I was walking past it. There is the question of the notebook. The notebook I did not open. I think about the notebook with the specific focus of someone who has already decided they made the right call in not opening it, but who is not entirely certain, who wonders about what is in it, and whether what is in it would answer the question of how long, or the question of who, or the question that sits underneath both of those. The question I try not to ask directly, because I am not sure I want the direct answer, which is, what else did whoever lived in that room know? What did they see from whatever vantage the room, or its entrance, or the woods around it provided? What did they watch from the surface, from 40 feet off the deer path, on the 1,000 mornings and evenings and twice in full dark when I was in those woods? What does the notebook say? I have decided not to know. I have decided that not knowing is the available version of safety in this situation, and I am taking it. But I walk the woods differently now. I walk them with a different quality of attention, a downward attention, a ground-level attention, looking at the forest floor not for the beauty of it, but for the edges, the right angles, the geometric interruptions that nature does not make. Looking for the other doors. Because if there is one bunker in these woods, built in the same era, by the same hands, or the same impulse, with the same purpose, there may be more than one. And I have not found the others yet, which means I have not ruled them out, which means on every walk, in every season, I am still walking above the possibility of what is below me, still choosing the deer path, still taking the dog, still returning every morning to the woods that are mine in the way that a place is yours when you have walked it so many times that your body carries the map of it. But the map has a room in it now that I did not draw, and I do not know who did. Story number 2. Before I show you the footage, I need to tell you what it took to get to that cliff. Because the approach is part of the story, and the approach is part of why what the footage shows is not a hiker who wandered into frame or a local who came to watch. It is part of why the figure that my GoPro caught standing at the edge in the 30 seconds before I jumped is something that should not be there and that I cannot explain. And I need you to have the full weight of the location and the access before the footage lands with its real force. The exit point I use for this particular base jump is at the top of a cliff formation in a remote part of the mountain range that requires a 4-hour approach from the nearest trailhead, 4 hours of technical hiking across terrain that is not maintained trail for the last 2 of those hours. That is scrambling and route finding across talus and through dense subalpine forest, and up a final ridge that requires hands and feet scrambling for the last 100 meters to the exit point. It is not a location that you arrive at accidentally. It is not a location that a casual hiker finds, or that someone who does not know specifically where it is and specifically how to get there is going to appear at. I have been to this exit point 14 times in 4 years, and in 14 approaches I have encountered other people on exactly 2 occasions, both times in the lower trail section before the maintained path ends. Both times clearly day hikers who were nowhere near my exit point. In the 2 hours of technical terrain between the end of the maintained trail and the exit point, I have never, in 14 approaches, seen another person. Not once. The exit point itself, which is a specific promontory of exposed rock at the cliff edge, is not visible from any other accessible location and is not known to exist by the general public. It is known to a small community of base jumpers who share information about exit points within that community and who do not publicize specific locations. I know who knows about this exit point. It is a short list. No one on that short list was on the mountain the day I jumped. I confirmed this before and after. No one was on the mountain. No one should have been at the exit point. And the figure standing at the edge in the footage was there. Let me give you the whole day. I am 38 years old. I have been base jumping for 6 years, which in the base jumping community is a moderate level of experience, enough to make considered decisions about equipment and exit points and conditions, but not so much that I have become complacent about any of those things, which is the danger that experience brings in high-consequence sports. Complacency in base jumping is a short path to a bad outcome, and I have worked to stay aware of it through 6 years of managing it. I am meticulous about my pre-jump preparation, meticulous about my equipment checks, meticulous about my weather assessment and my condition assessment and the specific cognitive state I require myself to be in before I approach an exit point. I document my jumps. I mount a GoPro on my helmet for every jump, both for the footage, which I review for technique improvement, and for the safety record it provides, the documentation of the jump from exit to landing. I have reviewed a lot of GoPro footage over 6 years. I know what the footage looks like. I know what should be in it. The day is a Wednesday in September, a weekday because I prefer weekdays in the backcountry for the reduced human traffic, and the conditions are textbook. A high-pressure system has been sitting over the range for 3 days producing stable, light wind conditions that are ideal for this exit point, which faces west and which is sensitive to the westerly wind that the afternoon thermals can produce. I start my approach at 5 a.m. to ensure I am at the exit point before those thermals develop, which puts me at the edge by 9 a.m. in the cool, stable air of the early morning. The approach goes exactly as approaches go. The trail, then the scrambling, then the ridge, then the final 100 meters. I am alone. I see no one on the trail section and no one on the technical section, and I arrive at the exit point at 8:52 a.m., and I stand at the edge, and I look at the landing zone far below, and the valley beyond it, and the sky, which is clear and still and exactly right. I spend 20 minutes at the exit point before I jump. This is my standard pre-jump routine. I set down my pack, I eat and drink. I do my equipment check in the specific sequence that I always do it. I check the wind at the exit point with my ribbon. I look at the landing zone. I get into the specific mental state that the jump requires. This routine is important, and I do not compress it. During these 20 minutes, I am fully present on that promontory of exposed rock, and I see what is there to see. Rock and sky, and the valley below, and nothing else. I am alone. I know I am alone because the promontory is small, 40 feet of exposed rock at the edge, nowhere on it for a person to be without being visible, and there is no person visible. I am alone. I mount the GoPro. I check the mount is secure. I check the camera is recording, which I confirm by the red indicator light on the side, and I position myself at the exit point for my final check before the jump. The GoPro is running. The GoPro is recording everything in front of my face and to the sides, the wide-angle lens capturing the exit point, and the edge, and the valley below, and the sky. I do my final equipment check in this position, risers, pilot chute, pin, and I jump. The jump is clean. The exit is clean. The deployment is at the right altitude. The canopy opens fully and correctly. The flight to the landing zone is straightforward. The landing is good. A clean jump on a textbook day at a familiar exit point. I pack my canopy. I call my ground contact to confirm successful landing. I take off my helmet. I put the GoPro in my pack. I hike to the road and I drive home. I review the footage that evening, which is my standard practice, and for the first portion of the footage there is nothing to review that is not what I always see. The exit point, the edge, the valley below from the exit position, my hands doing the final equipment check. And then, in the 30 seconds before the jump, I see it. The camera is pointed forward and slightly down, the typical GoPro helmet mount angle, and it shows the exit point and the edge and the valley below and the sky at the horizon, and in the 30 seconds before I jump. In the footage I am watching on my laptop screen, with the specific focused attention of a jumper looking for technical information, at the right edge of the frame. At the very periphery of the wide-angle lens's capture, there is a figure, standing at the edge of the exit point. Not a feature of the rock, not a shadow, not a processing artifact of the camera, a figure. Human in outline, human in proportion, standing at the right edge of the promontory approximately 15 feet from where I am standing, facing the valley, facing the same direction I am facing, standing at the cliff edge on a 40-foot promontory of exposed rock 4 hours from the nearest trailhead on a weekday morning in September. I pause the footage. I go back. I watch the 30 seconds at half speed. The figure is there for all 30 seconds. It does not move. It stands at the edge with the stillness of something that is very comfortable at the edge of a cliff, with the stillness of something that is there intentionally. And in the wide-angle distortion of the GoPro lens, it is not perfectly clear, but it is unambiguous. This is not a rock formation, not a shadow, not a compression artifact. It has a head and shoulders and the vertical arrangement of a standing person, and it is at the edge of the cliff 15 feet to my right, and I was standing there for 20 minutes before this footage, and it was not there. My full 20 minutes of pre-jump routine are on the footage, and the figure is not there for any of those 20 minutes. It appears in the final 30 seconds, in the position closest to my exit point, without any footage of it arriving, without any moment of transition between its absence and its presence. It is not there, and then it is there, and it is there for 30 seconds, and then I jump and the camera angle tips to the sky and the cliff face and the valley below, and the footage continues, and the figure is behind me now, and I am in the air, and the canopy opens, and the landing, and then nothing. I go back to the footage of the exit point during the 20 minutes before the figure appears. I look at every frame of the right edge of the promontory where the figure stands in the final 30 seconds. The rock is bare. The edge is clear. Nothing is there. Nothing transitions into existence. The figure simply is there at the 30-second mark and was not there at the 31-second mark, and there is no footage of arrival because there is no arrival that the camera recorded. It is there, and it was not there, and I was on that promontory for 20 minutes, and I did not see it. I have 3 people I trust in the base jumping community who I show the footage to over the following days. All 3 watch the 30 seconds. All 3 go back and watch it again. 2 of them say nothing for a while, and then ask if I was sure I was alone. The third one, who has been jumping longer than me and who is the most technically analytical person I know in this sport, watches it 4 times and then puts the laptop down and says the resolution is not high enough to be definitive about what it is. I ask him what he thinks it is. He picks the laptop back up and watches it one more time, and then he says he doesn't know, and he says it in the tone that he uses for things he doesn't want to not know. The tone of someone setting a problem down, because holding it is producing something he would rather not feel. He says it's probably just the way the rock looks at that angle. He says it. He doesn't believe it. I can see that he doesn't believe it. I don't believe it either. I have not returned to that exit point. Not for weather reasons, not for scheduling reasons. I have other exit points I use regularly, and I have used them in the months since, and the jumps have been clean, and the footage has been clean, and what the GoPro shows is rock and sky and valley and nothing at the edge that should not be at the edge. But I check every review, every frame of the exit point footage, before and after the jump. I check the edges. I check what is standing at the edges. I check what was not there when I was standing there, and then was there when the camera was running. And I will keep checking because now I know that the camera sees things that I do not see, that the wide-angle lens captures the full periphery of the exit point in a way that my forward-focused pre-jump attention does not, that there are things at the edges of exit points that stand there in the 30 seconds before a person jumps, that stand there at the specific edge of the specific cliff, and face the same direction the jumper faces, that do not arrive on the footage, that are simply present, that have perhaps always been present, that I have perhaps been jumping past for 6 years, for 14 approaches to this exit point alone, jumping into the air over a valley 4 hours from anywhere while something stood at the edge and watched me go. I do not know what it wants. I do not know if it is always the same thing or if the thing at this edge and the possible things at other edges are related. I know what the footage shows. I know what 30 seconds of GoPro video at 8:52 a.m. on a Wednesday in September on a cliff in a remote mountain range shows. And I know that on my next jump, on whatever exit point and whatever morning, the first thing I will do after I land and pack my canopy and take off my helmet is review the footage. And I will look at the edges. And I will look at what is standing there that I could not see while I was standing there myself. And whatever it is, whatever the lens finds at the edge that my eyes do not find, I will know what it looks like in the 30 seconds before a man jumps into the air. And I will know that it was watching. Story number 3. I want you to think about what it would mean to walk into a room and find that the room is about you. Not a room that contains a few things that reference you. Not a room with your photograph in it or your name on something inside it, but a room that has been constructed around the specific project of you, that has been organized and populated over time with a thoroughness that speaks of both obsession and patience and an access to information about your life that you did not grant to anyone. A room where every wall, floor to ceiling, is covered in the record of you. Your name in newspaper print, in headline and in body text and in caption, in articles about events you were present at and events adjacent to you and events that touch the periphery of your life. Your face in photographs clipped from coverage and printed from digital sources and arranged in the specific way that someone arranges things they are studying. The way a researcher pins things when the relationship between them is the subject of the research. I walked into that room and I stood in it for what I estimate is 2 minutes, though it felt like longer. And in those 2 minutes I understood what it means to be the subject of something. To be the center of an attention that you did not invite and did not know was being paid. To stand in the physical record of how completely and how long you have been watched. 2 minutes, and then I left the building, and I have not gone back to urban exploring since, and I have changed things about my life that I am not going to fully enumerate here for reasons that will be clear by the end. And I am telling you this story because carrying it alone is something I have been doing for long enough, and because I think you should know that the places we move through in our ordinary lives, the rooms we enter and the events we attend and the public moments we inhabit, are visible to people and things beyond the ones we are aware of. And sometimes that visibility is being recorded, and sometimes what is recording it has found a room to put the record in, and sometimes someone opens that door. Here is the whole thing from the start. I have been urban exploring for 7 years. Urban exploration, the practice of entering and documenting abandoned structures, decommissioned industrial facilities, empty institutional buildings, is a pursuit that exists in the legal gray area familiar to anyone who does it, requiring a calibrated relationship with trespass laws and a specific commitment to the core ethic of the practice, which is take nothing, leave nothing, document everything. I carry a camera. I carry a headlamp and a backup light. I carry basic safety gear for structures of uncertain integrity. I have been in hospitals and factories and office buildings and hotels and warehouses and train stations and at least 6 schools, all abandoned, all in various stages of the specific beautiful decay that abandonment produces in built structures. I have a reasonable following for the documentation I produce, photographs and video, posted with location information withheld in accordance with the practice's ethics, showing the interiors of these spaces in the specific quality of light and decay that makes them worth documenting. My face is known in that community. My username is known. But my real name and my specific location and my personal life are not things I have shared in that context. I am careful about that. I have been careful about that for 7 years. The building I am in on the day I find the room is a former light industrial facility on the edge of a mid-sized city, a 2-story brick building that housed a printing company from the 1930s until the 90s, when the company closed and the building was sold and sat empty for the decades since. The building is not well known in the urban exploration community. I found it through my own scouting, through the specific combination of local historical records and satellite imagery and ground-level assessment that I used to identify locations before visiting. I do not believe I have mentioned this building to anyone before going. I did not post about it beforehand. I am in it alone on a Thursday afternoon in November, having entered through a compromised ground floor window on the building's north side. The first floor is unremarkable in the specific way of a former industrial space. The large open floor plan of the production area, the original machinery long since removed and sold, the floors in the state of advanced grime and deterioration that unheated industrial spaces accumulate over decades, the windows mostly intact but so coated in grime that they pass only a diffuse gray light. I document it. I move through the space methodically, which is my practice, covering the perimeter and the interior before going to the second floor. There is nothing on the first floor that is unusual. The second floor is accessed by a staircase at the far end of the building, the treads intact enough to carry my weight with appropriate caution, and I go up. The second floor is organized differently from the first. It was the administrative and office section of the building, divided into smaller rooms off a central corridor, the walls still standing, the doors either open or removed. the rooms visible as I walk the corridor in the order they present themselves. I document each room as I pass. They are all empty or nearly empty, containing only the artifacts of deep abandonment. Curled linoleum, plaster fallen from the lath in sections, the occasional piece of furniture too damaged or too heavy to have been worth removing. I am midway down the corridor, and I have documented perhaps 6 rooms, and the building is performing exactly as a building like this should perform when I reach the room at the end of the corridor. The door is closed. All the other doors are open or removed. This door is closed, and it is closed in a way that suggests it has been closed recently. The hinge side shows none of the rust freezing that closed doors in abandoned buildings develop when they have been closed for years, and there is a gap at the bottom of the door that shows the room beyond is lit with the specific warm color of artificial light, not the gray daylight of grime-filtered windows. There is a light source in the room, a working light source, in a building that has had no electrical service for at least 15 years. I stand in the corridor in front of the closed door for a long time. I run the inventory of explanations. The light could be from a gap in the exterior wall, from a window on the far side, less grimy than the others. I listen for movement behind the door and hear none. I listen for any sound from within and hear none. I stand there for what I estimate as 3 minutes before I put my hand on the handle and open the door. The room is approximately 15 feet square. There is a battery-powered lantern on the floor in the center, a good one, a modern unit, fully charged, producing the warm light I saw through the gap at the door bottom. There is a folding camp chair beside the lantern. There is a low folding table with a thermos on it, a notebook, 2 pens. These details I register in the first second or two of being in the doorway, and then my eyes move to the walls and stay there. The walls are covered in newspaper, not in the general way that people use newspaper as packing material or impromptu wallpaper, covered in the specific way that a researcher covers a wall, with clippings and printouts arranged and overlapping, and in some places layered 3 or 4 deep, covering the full wall surface from the baseboard to as high as a person could reach, on all 4 walls. And what is on the clippings and printouts is me. My name, in print, across the top of articles. My face, in photographs, in the quality of both professional press photography and amateur digital photography, and what appears to be stills captured from video. My name and my face and the documentation of my life as it is visible in the public record, in local news coverage and event programs, and the photographs posted by other people at events I attended, and the records of the organizations I belong to, and the places I have been, and the things I have done that have, in some form, made their way into any kind of record. And in between and around and overlapping this material, handwritten notes. Handwritten in a small regular print on paper and sticky notes, and directly onto some of the clippings. Notes that connect things with drawn lines and circles, that add dates and questions and observations, that constitute, across 4 walls of this room, an analytical record of a person's engagement with the subject, which is me. I stand in the doorway. I do not enter the room. I am looking at it from the doorway, and I am doing the thing that the mind does when it receives information of this magnitude in this form, trying to make it smaller, trying to find the frame that makes it ordinary, that makes it the slightly eccentric hobby of someone mildly obsessed with a minor public figure rather than the record of something that I do not have a clean word for. I look at the photographs. Many of them I recognize, events I attended, photographs taken by others in which I appear, photographs in which I am not the subject but am visible in the background, photographs that I did not know existed. Some I do not recognize. Some show me in places where I was not aware of being photographed, places where a camera should not have been in a position to capture me, places that are not public events but ordinary places, the street near my apartment, and the parking lot of my regular grocery store, and what appears to be the exterior of my building from across the street. These photographs I stand and look at, and I do not go into the room, because going into the room would mean being inside the record of my own surveillance, and I am not ready to be inside that. I leave. I go back down the corridor and down the stairs and through the compromised window, and I sit in my car in a parking structure 2 blocks from the building for 45 minutes before I can drive. I think about the lantern, the charge in it, the warmth of its light. I think about the thermos and the camp chair, the arrangement of someone who comes here regularly and stays for periods of time, who has made this room into a working space, who brings what they need to work here. I think about the notebook and the pens on the folding table, the working materials of someone who is actively engaged with the project of this room, who comes here and adds to it and studies it and writes their observations down. I think about the photographs of my street and my parking lot and my building. I think about how long. I think about 7 years of urban exploration documentation and the following I have built in that community, and whether the person or thing that built this room found me there first, found my work, found my face, and began from that point, or whether the beginning was somewhere else, somewhere earlier, something I cannot identify in my own history. I think about the handwritten notes on the walls, the lines drawn between things, the questions marked in the margins, and I think about what the questions are and whether I want to know the answers, and I decide I do not. I have not returned to that building. I have not posted about it. I am telling this story without giving the city or the specific location because I am not sure what giving the location would produce, and I am not willing to find out. I have changed my routines since November, not dramatically, not in the way of someone in a movie who changes identity and disappears, but in the specific practical ways of someone who has seen the photographs of their ordinary locations and knows that ordinary locations are observable and has decided to introduce some variability, some unpredictability, some reduction in the consistency that makes patterns visible, and patterns are what the room was full of, my patterns, the record of my routines and appearances, and the places my life makes me visible, collected and pinned to the walls of a room in an abandoned building by something that has been paying attention for long enough and with enough access to resources to fill 4 walls floor to ceiling. There is one more thing. The notebook on the folding table. I looked at it from the doorway, and I did not go in, and I did not touch it, and I did not open it. And I made those decisions in real time with the specific reasoning I described, the reasoning about not disturbing what was there and being findable in that room with someone's things open rather than closed. What I could see from the doorway, without entering, without touching anything, is the notebook's open page. It was open. The notebook was lying open on the folding table, and from the doorway I could see that the open page had writing on it, the same small regular print as the notes on the walls, and I could read it from the doorway, from that distance, because the writing was large enough and clear enough and the lantern light was sufficient. It was a date at the top of the page. The date was 2 days before the Thursday I was there, and below the date, a single line of text, a single line that I read from the doorway of a room in an abandoned building surrounded by 4 walls of my own life, and that I have been reading in my memory every day since. It said, "He will come on Thursday. He will come on Thursday." Not he might come. Not looking for him. He will come. On the Thursday 2 days from when that was written, I would open that door and stand in that doorway and look at those walls. And something knew that 2 days before I was there. And it wrote it down. And it left the notebook open to the page. And it left the lantern on. And it left the chair there, and the thermos there, and then it left the room, and I came on Thursday, and I stood in the doorway, and I read what it knew, and then I left, and whatever it is. It knows where I am, and it knows when I will be there, and it knew before I did that I would open that door, and it has filled 4 walls with the record of my life, and the notebook has more pages, and whatever comes after Thursday is written somewhere in them, and I do not know what it says.